very much a case of the good, the bad and the ugly this week. Hello, it's Friday, it's comic book review video day with me, your host, GhostCritic. It has been a bit of a roller coaster ride with comics this week. I've got about 6 or 7 to get through this week, so a bit more meatier than last week. But there were moments of just like, why are you bothering? To moments of just pure brilliance. So let's kick off with some bad comics. Why not? We'll build our way up. Batwoman issue 27. Really? It's very pretty to look at. I'll give it that. Francis Manapul has been dragged onto this this title, and it's really the only thing going for it right now. The story here of what little there is just retreading yet again the history of Kate. Okay, this is now in kind of a drug-fueled kind of nightmare scape that she goes through, but it is another telling of, you know, her as a child with her little sister, her parents, her army life, and it's just like we've had this already and done much better by J.H. Williams. The story that we have got here is not exactly riveting. It's kind of a continuation of this spider wolf character who's stealing all this artwork. We don't know why yet. We find out who this spider wolf is doing it for, but apart from that and kind of the ending, there really wasn't much going on. By the end of this, someone else could potentially know the identity of Batwoman, but given the character, she'll probably get away with it. I'm so loath to drop this because I love Batwoman as a title, as a concept, though she's a great addition to the Bat family without actually really being part of it. But our new writer, he's seriously got to go and up his game. It's Sex issue 10, and I may have been a little bit too soon with my praise from last issue, where we had the kind of flashback to the days of the superheroics before our main character Simon Cook retired. That was a really good issue, and now we're back to, well, who knows? Does anyone have any idea where Joe Casey is going with this? And again, it's a story that isn't really particularly riveting. It's all about Simon Cook going back to his company and basically trying to get the trust of his employees back. There's a lot of office politics. There's a deal with a Chinese-Japanese company going on. But it's like, this isn't a story. This is just, it doesn't seem to be furthering anything. Of course, there is liberal amounts, as always, of sex in here. Again, you know, this is not for the kids to read, clearly, with a title called Sex, but we have multiple shots of, you know, penises, people having sex. I just don't know what is going on. It's really hard to figure out what Joe Casey is trying to do with this. the shock value has kind of gone now. Why am I still reading this? I'm not sure myself. It's a bit like a car crash when you're driving past and you can't help but kind of linger or looking at the carnage and the debris. Sex issue 10. I wouldn't recommend it. Issue 3 of Umbral from Image came out this week, continuing our dark fantasy, and we follow our kind of two main characters that have teamed up, Rascal and this magician, who have made it into the Smuggler's Cove, escaping all the bad, spirity, black, creepy crawly guys. But once they get there, they find everybody dead. The story kind of flip-flops between them finding all these dead people and their story progressing, trying to find out what's happened. And we, the reader, get the flashback of what has actually happened. And it's really quite clever, and it did kind of confuse me for a little bit because you were given these characters that you had no idea who they were. You were like, they don't look like the characters that were going to Smuggler's Cove to begin with. Okay, but once you realise what was happening, it was a really nice and clever way of telling the story without too much exposition and explaining from the characters that were coming into the scene after it had happened. We have this, not necessarily a new character as such, but it's kind of one of those fantasy genres being used of this, what they call Mistwalker, and it looks like this huge mythical not creature because it's clearly human, but it's kind of trapped, or it's kind of in this stone, and apparently it's going so slowly you can't actually see it. It is a real life human character. Read it. I'm not explaining it very well, but it was very cool and it looked really cool as well. Just as we seem to be getting a new member to our kind of like merry little band and getting a bit of a group of main characters to root for, one of them comes a bit of a cropper, so goodbye to you. And it doesn't really look good for the rest of the characters, as kind of Rascal uses the Oculus pendant to escape from yet again from the Umbral, and it's kind of like out of the fire into the frying pan kind of deal. This, I think, is going to be a little bit of a slow burner. There's plenty of story in there. There's a smidgen of kind of action. It's all very magical and fantasy based. I think people may be impatient for it to move a bit faster. But as I've always said about this title, it's a genre I really enjoy. And as kind of running the cliche gamut of fantasy stories that it does, I still really enjoy it. Issue 27 of Batman, and Scott Snyder was a right little chatterbox in this issue. If you wanted a story that was worth its money and that would take you a while to read, this is the issue for you this week. There is a ton of talking. Not saying that it is all chatterbox. There is a little bit of action right at the beginning where we left off. Batman was being fired upon by Loeb and his fellow cops, and we see his escape and kind of rescue of sorts by Commissioner, well, he isn't a commissioner yet, but by James Gordon. Now, the big long talky bits come from two characters. One of them is James Gordon, and he kind of recounts the story of the trench coat, which we'd seen in a previous issue, and that Bruce Wayne took much umbrage about because he considered it payoff, and he was just as crooked as all the other cops in the precinct. And that kind of goes on a bit. It is very interesting. It does flesh out Gordon's character really well, and it was a great kind of little flashback within this flashback we're having now of Bruce Wayne's earlier life. So it was enjoyable. Also, a nice little highlight in this was kind of Pennyworth's words of wisdom regarding Bruce and his persona as Batman. And while he has all these people who are ready to help him as Batman, Pennyworth realises Bruce really doesn't want them to help. They are purely there to witness Batman. It's an interesting concept and a little tweak of his earlier life as Batman. And really quite a poignant moment from Pennyworth. It finishes off with Enigma, the Riddler, throwing out his next huge challenge to Batman and what could potentially happen to the city of Gotham. As always, artwork by Greg Capullo is fantastic. It's so beautifully drawn. There are some nice images of you know, the shadowy Batman perched on a telephone wire, which kind of puts chills up and down your spine. A great addition to this, maybe too overlong 0 year. And I think we're going to have a little bit of a digression in next issue, which is only going to make this event all the more longer. But still, it was fun, it was entertaining to read. Batman, Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, solid. Animal Man issue 27. And I do have to say, this is the penultimate issue. Next issue is the last one. And because of the huge reveal of last issue, with the universe, it literally expanding a universe of the Red, and in particular Animal Man. With only 2 issues to go, it's so hard to kind of be invested in these last couple of issues, because you know this revelation of all the different planets with their own avatars of the red, all kind of, and the green as well. You know it's unlikely to be followed through, and we're just going to wrap up this Brother Blood Rogue Avatar storyline. The book itself is really good. I mean, it's a good, solid story. It's all about fighting this week. We've got Buddy versus our rogue avatar, Brother Blood against the last remaining inhabitants of the Red, who are trying to stop Brother Blood and his kind of cohorts in getting to Maxine. And I mean, even Ellen gets a punch in there with her kind of sad beginning to this issue, but I don't know. I'm sad to see this go, and I won't be seeing Betty Baker now for probably a long time, despite him off to Justice League United or Canada or wherever he's going. So we're on to my top 2 books this week. Remember, I said on Wednesday I picked up Deadly Class knowing nothing about it, but it was a new #1 from Image. It was Rick Remender writing it. I think it was a pretty safe bet that this was going to be something special. And I think this is Image's next big thing. It was good. Packed with so much awesomeness. Oh, where do I start? Right, we've got carnivals, assassins, cops, the homeless, hidden schools, car chases, guns, swords. We've got a big cast of characters that look interesting. It was action-packed, it moved really well, well-paced by Rick Remender. The artist, which I haven't really heard of before, Wes Craig, He kind of, in moments, there was a almost kind of Paul Pope kind of feel to it, which is no bad thing at all. The artwork in here is really, really nice. The story centres around Marcus, who has kind of been in and out, by the sounds of it, of homes and hostels as a young boy because his parents died at the hands of some like psychopath murderer. And he's kind of, I'm not quite sure if he's escaped from the last one or he's come to an age where, you know, he can leave now without having to have the permission of anyone. But he's basically living on the streets, trying to make the best of each day as it goes by. And he does go through some tough times where we see his life you know, through the months, and how it seems to get worse and worse. And all the time we hear him saying, you know, he's paranoid because he feels like someone's watching him, and indeed they are. And not just the, well, we don't know who are the good guys and who are the bad guys really yet. But it was just such a great start to a book. It's Rick Remender, and he's just done it again. A really great read, action-packed, solid story, great artwork, images onto another winner, assassins. What can be better? And finally, it's the Unwritten, issue 1 of the second volume, entitled Apocalypse. And this is the start of what I believe is going to be a 12-issue final run to this series. Bit of a shame, but if the start is anything to go by, we have got another 11 issues of just pure magic on our hands. We begin again, literally, in the story sense, where we go back to creation. And this, throughout the title, it is Tom Taylor's journey from the very beginning, trying to get back home to London. And it kind of traverses through the stories of the animal kingdom. Wherever there's an animal in a story, that's how Tom gets to where he needs to go. So you have the Ugly Duckling in there, Hans Christian Andersen, Rikki Tikki Tavi, Alice in Wonderland, Aslan in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe's in there. He takes a trip to, I think it's Willowbank, where you've got kind of like, it's kind of very Beatrix Potter type world. And then he eventually gets back to London, which is kind of looking a worse for wear. But it's really the story leading up to it, and the way Mike Carey, you know, entwines all these much loved children's stories into it and makes it make sense. It's just such wonderful. And Peter Gross's artwork, let's not forget this, he does a lot of different styles in here. He really did outdo himself. I'm willing to forgive the price hike on this because it was just such a lovely, lovely comic to read. Please go pick up the trades that came before this. Grab these while you can, because they are lovely books. Magical, thoughtful, well, you know, they're paced well, they're clever. Pick of the week. And that's it for another week of comic books. Thank you all for watching. If this is your first time here, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss out on any other of my weekly videos. Give it a big thumbs up if you loved it, and put a comment in the box below about, I don't know, what I've just reviewed. What did you think of the comics I read this week, if you picked them up too? Or did I miss something this week that maybe I should have picked up? didn't really see much on the counter, on the shelves this week new, but maybe I missed something. So until I see you next Friday for another comic book review video, I'll say goodbye and have a great weekend.